If you are familiar with Forms W-8BEN or W-8BEN-E, it is important to understand that Form W-8 IMY serves a very different function. Form W-8 IMY is not used by the beneficial owner of income. Instead, it is used by intermediaries and certain flow-through entities that receive U.S. source income on behalf of others. This form is commonly provided by qualified intermediaries known as QIs, non-qualified intermediaries or NQIs, foreign partnerships, foreign simple and grantor trusts, and certain foreign branches. In each case, the entity is acting as a pass-through rather than the actual owner of the income being paid. Under U.S. tax law, most U.S. source fixed, determinable, annual, or periodic income, often called FDAP income, is subject to a 30% withholding tax unless proper documentation is provided. This default rate applies to payments such as dividends, interest, royalties, rents, substitute payments, and other passive income. When a U.S. withholding agent makes a payment to a foreign intermediary, the agent must determine who the true beneficial owners are and what withholding rate applies to each of them. Without valid documentation, the withholding agent may be required to apply the full 30% rate. Form W-8 IMY exists to solve this documentation problem. First, it certifies that the entity receiving the payment is acting as an intermediary or flow-through entity, not as the beneficial owner. Second, it establishes the intermediary's status for withholding and reporting purposes. For example, the entity must indicate whether it is a qualified intermediary, a non-qualified intermediary, a withholding foreign partnership, a withholding foreign trust, a foreign financial institution, or another applicable classification. This classification determines who is responsible for withholding and reporting. In some cases, such as with a qualified intermediary, the intermediary may assume primary withholding responsibility. In other cases, the U.S. withholding agent retains that obligation. Third, Form W-8 IMY works together with supporting documentation. Unlike other W-8 forms, W-8 IMY is rarely sufficient on its own. It must generally be accompanied by a withholding statement and valid documentation for each beneficial owner, such as Forms W-8BEN, W-8BEN-E, or W-9. These supporting forms allow the withholding agent to apply the correct tax rate at the beneficial owner level, including any applicable treaty reductions. The form also requires the intermediary to certify its status under FATCA, the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act. If applicable, the entity may need to provide its Global Intermediary Identification Number, or GIIN, to confirm compliance. To complete Form W-8 IMY accurately, the entity typically provides its legal name, country of organization, permanent address, FATCA classification, intermediary status certification, and any required identification numbers. It must also attach the appropriate withholding statement detailing how payments are allocated among beneficial owners. It is important to understand that Form W-8 IMY does not eliminate tax. Its purpose is to ensure that withholding is applied correctly and only to the extent required under U.S. law. The form is provided directly to the U.S. withholding agent and is not filed with the IRS. Once signed, it generally remains valid until the last day of the third calendar year following the year of signature unless a change in circumstances occurs. If the intermediary status changes, documentation becomes invalid, or ownership information is updated, a new form must be submitted. Failure to provide complete and accurate documentation can result in full 30% withholding, potential FATCA withholding where applicable, and delays in payment processing. In summary, Form W-8 IMY is a critical compliance document for foreign intermediaries and flow-through entities. It ensures that U.S. source income is properly documented, correctly allocated, and withheld at the appropriate rate, no more and no less, while maintaining compliance with U.S. tax regulations. For a secure and efficient way to manage Form W-8 IMY and other IRS compliance requirements, visit TaxBandits.com and simplify your reporting process today.